Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Money Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Nadine Zamot. I am a somatic practitioner and a holistic money coach. And today, we are going to keep going on March's theme, money misconceptions. With me today is one of my friends and my client, Katie Pijanowski. This is Katie's second time on the Money Healing Podcast. Welcome back, Katie. Hey.
Hey, so happy to be here again. I love this community.
Yeah, I'm so happy you're back and you look fresh. Katie moved to San Diego and she's got that California, look to her, and she is glowing. And I am so excited to share her story with you all. And this is going to be a little bit different because usually when I have a guest, it's more of a conversation, like a co-host, but I'm going to be interviewing Katie because she is a rock star. Katie is a rock star. Oh, yeah.
Why, thank you.
So Katie is an entrepreneur and she works in sales. And what else would you like to share about yourself, Katie?
Oh, let's see. What else do I share? Well, I've lived in 5 states, so that's super fun. I've gotten to move a lot. And I think that's also just really helped me grow as a person. And I think especially this last move, as you know, and we can get into that, moving from Texas to California most recently has really challenged me in my mindset around money, abundance, all of those things. So really learning to surrender to that and trust has been a super fun journey. But I guess what else I'll share is before I was in sales, I was in fitness and health for a long time. So it's kind of funny when I get to tell people oh, I do tech sales now. And I have a business as well, of course, because that's just who I am. I always have a business, but I did fitness and then I went into tech sales. So it's always funny. Someone actually asked me what's the story arc there? And I was like, yeah, right. It's weird, but yeah. Anyways,
would the answer
excited.
be Manigen? Would that be a good story arc, a bridge of I'm just the manager? I do everything.
Just love all the things. I actually was telling someone, this is funny. I was hiking with a new friend of mine. I'm listing off all these things I've done, blah, blah, blah. And she's just blown away, mouth on the floor. And I'm just what? And she's like, you've done so many things. And I'm like, oh, I mean, it seems normal to me. So Manigens, get it.
Right? Manigens. And you're not, you just turned 30, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a really big, big amounts of accomplishments and achievements for someone that just turned 30. So that is amazing. So what are the 5 states? So I know about Texas. I know about California. Yep. I know about Chicago. Yep. And you grew up in Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois is where I grew up. And then Indiana is where I went to college. And Colorado is where I moved before, in between college and college in Dallas. So
all you're doing is just skipping around New Mexico, right? So in the end, you might end up here.
Yeah, apparently. I haven't been there yet. So yeah, I need to come visit you.
Yes, I would love to see you in person. Oh, that'll be so good.
I'd love that too.
So Katie she's a star student. Let's just put it this way. When we first started working together, you had a substantial amount of debt. Tell us a little bit more about that. How did you accumulate it? What was your relationship with money like back then? What was your mindset like? And tell us a little bit more about, whatever you'd like to share about your debt story to get us started.
Sure. Yeah. So like I mentioned, I was in the fitness realm for 6 or 7 years. I did health coaching, life coaching. So I was in that realm for a really long time. And in the beginning of that, I really got caught up in this kind of messaging that went around in those coaching circles that I picked up on, which is you need to always invest and then the money will just come to you. And that really put me in kind of a little bit of that fool archetype that I know that your audience will know. It was just spend the money and don't think about it ever again. And so that kind of pattern happened for quite a few years. And then it was almost like I was underwater and like, you know, holding my breath, so to speak. And then beginning of 2022, I came up and like finally gasped for air and looked around and realized I had $68,000 of consumer debt.
Wow.
Most of that was consumer debt. Only about
Yeah.
14,000 was student loans. And
Okay.
I really had no idea what I was going to do. I wasn't making that much money, really living paycheck to paycheck as a uh, sales manager of a fitness studio. And I knew I had to really make a change. And so that was beginning of 2022 was when I really started saying, okay, I need to change this. Something needs to change. Started looking for different jobs. And in the midst of that, actually got fired from my job.
Yeah.
So even in the midst of all of that, that's when actually you and I had been connected for a while through coaching groups. And I started working in the money sanctuary with you in the
Yeah.
group. And in that season of my life, the kind of later half of 2022, I was just still in so much paralysis because I had
Yeah.
been really set forward of like, I'm going to pay this off. I was driving for Lyft to like pay extra towards my debt. So I was getting really serious about taking
Yeah.
action. And when I had to settle into my new job, that really took some time to really settle in kind of in a different way, because this job provided me a lot more financial security than I was originally used to in previous years. And so I had to really get comfortable with that. And a lot of my mindset before that time was, you know, I just got to pay off this debt as fast as possible. And so my mindset would go very quickly to all or nothing.
All or
I
nothing.
need
Yep.
to basically cut everything that's enjoyable in my life. And I can't do absolutely anything or save anything, go on
Yep.
any trips, like buy coffee until I pay this debt off. It was kind of that like punishment mentality. And unfortunately, like I had tried that scenario before where I had paid off all my debt and been, you know, got the credit card paid off, but then I would have something else come up and I'd be moving and I'd need furniture and I wouldn't have planned for that. Right. So then it goes right back on the credit card. So it was just vicious cycle. And end of 2022, and we started working together in the money sanctuary, I remember telling you, like, I mean, it was hard for me to talk in the group about
Yeah.
money at that point,
Yeah.
you know, and like, I was like, just, it was so difficult to allow myself to sit in that because it just felt like this heavy weight on my shoulders. Like it really didn't feel like there was any way to get out from underneath it. I really wanted to be able to save. I wanted to be able to be debt free, but I also wanted to be able to enjoy my life. Right. So I was
Yeah.
like,
I
how
hear
do I
you.
do all of these things? And so, really like getting into the fundamentals of what you were teaching. And then eventually in the beginning of 2023, later part of 2023 is when we started doing one-on-one stuff
Yeah,
together.
we started
And
in July 2023,
yeah,
but
2023,
yeah, we
right.
had worked together for around a year inside the group coaching. And I
Right.
do understand how difficult it is to talk about these things in within a group, even if it's a safe group without like strangers and you get used to each other. But it takes a lot of courage to talk about these things out loud, even to
Yeah.
yourself, right? Just to admit
Yeah,
things to yourself.
yeah, absolutely. To admit to myself, and also there was just a lot of shame because I
Hmm.
felt like I should have known this stuff. And I mean,
How though?
as we just
Right?
right, exactly how, because I still watch my parents that still struggle with money.
Yeah.
And as we discover in the money sanctuary and with our one-on-one work, like a lot of our money view comes from what we see growing up. And really doing that like inner childhood healing, which we'll go into more, I'm sure,
Hmm.
like really that one-on-one work where you really were able to like provide that like safe space for me to really dive into that. I think that
Hmm.
just really helped shift it. And that was dealing with my relationship with money, I think was probably one of the harder things because I had done a lot of coaching, a lot of counseling and therapy around like body image and my relationship to food and just like relationships in general, but I
Yeah.
never really touched money. Like that was always the one I kind of like put on the side. And I was like, nah, you know, if I just make like one day when my business makes all this money, then I'll just like be fine. And it just
Right.
doesn't work
That's
like that.
that's like the common misconception of like when I have a lot of money, all my money worries are gonna go away. No.
Nope.
Unfortunately, when you have more money, your money worries and anxiety are just going to get amplified. If you have money shame somehow, that's going to also get amplified. I have $1 million business owners that come to me because they feel so ashamed somehow of having all this money because they haven't dealt with the shame they had around money when they had less money, right? So
Right.
it's such an amplifier. And I love that you mentioned that. You did mention something earlier on when you said that the new job provided you with more financial security and that you weren't used to it. And that is such a common thing that I see as well. When we start making more money, um, sometimes we're not used to it. Sometimes it actually is triggering to make more money. And that's why a lot of these people that win a big amount of money all of a sudden say, oh, I just spent it all. I don't know where it went. And I have a friend that said her first 10K month in business, it just flew out of her account. She cannot
Mm-hmm.
remember where it all went. So sometimes if money dysregulates our nervous system, more money is going to also create a dysregulation, which can end up meaning that we're going to spend it all or hold on to it and obsess about it and worry about it too much to a point where we're not enjoying life.
Right. That is definitely a big part that I had to overcome. And I think there's still like times where I catch my mindset, like it'll go back there once in a while. But like I
Hmm.
think the difference now is it's not in the driver's seat. It's
Yeah.
not controlling me all the time. Like I'll check. I basically have it on my calendar like weekly to just do a quick financial like check and
Look at
update, and then that's
you. Look
it.
at you. Yeah. It doesn't take much time once you have a system. It takes a few
Hmm.
minutes. I do it. It
Yeah,
takes me like 2 minutes a week as well. So once you have
exactly.
that system
Yeah,
rolling, it's amazing. And the system that you learn when you're working with me, the bucket system and all the little like things that we do, it makes it as easy as just pressing a button, right? It's so cool. I
yeah.
love it. I
It's
love
so
money when
easy.
it's so easy like that. It doesn't have
I
to be
just
complicated.
before this call got paid early and like looked at my spreadsheet and was like, okay, where do I move all my money in my buckets? Boom, boom, boom. And then I was like, done.
Oh my
It's
God, Katie,
it's
that
so
sounds
satisfying.
so good. That's so
Yeah.
satisfying, right? It's so good.
Hmm.
So how, if you don't mind sharing, how much have you paid off so far? And if there are any
Yeah.
specific strategies or approaches that you use to manage and navigate that debt payoff effectively. But I guess also in that question is like, what did you try and didn't work, which was that punishing kind of method of like
Yeah.
just go, 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 pay, 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 shame, shame, shame.
Mm,
But what is the
mhm.
effective method that worked for you, and where are you at now in the 68?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's talk about first the ways in which I
Hmm.
maybe thought about it before,
Yeah.
because we'll go into that. But I definitely had, I remember specifically I had like, let's say like $4,000 on a credit card. And I remember being like, okay, I'm just going to pay it all off. So I would put all of my extra money. Um, and this is before I had a bucket system too. So sometimes I would do so much so that I would forget, oh, I have this bill that came up,
Hmm.
or I
Yep.
had this other thing that I was
Yep.
planning for, but didn't actually plan for.
Hmm.
And after paying it all off, I'd realize, oh my gosh, I have no savings. I have no plan for these other things that were in the calendar, but I just didn't financially plan for. I just kind
Yep.
of hoped that things would go well. And it would just come right back on. And then it just kept growing and growing from there. And I think that is often what happens too. When you find yourself in that all or nothing, when you like pay it all off, you find yourself putting even more on, and the
Hmm.
threshold just keeps like, you just keep creating this like really crazy like seesaw. I don't even know. It's just crazy. So in the I can tell you too, like when I got my job that was paying more, I was getting commission checks. And I remember like when I was first going through this process with you, I was still learning how to feel a little bit more regulated around receiving like these larger sums of commission money. And I would get it. And at first I felt like just so much anxiety inside my body. I felt like, no, I just need to like pay it all off towards debt. Like that was what was
Yeah.
going on in my body. And then I'd be like, okay, no, wait, let's like, calm down. And so I would kind of let myself like do some breathing, do some grounding, and then I'd also just type out, okay, well, let's actually see where this stuff needs to go. So let's say it was like $1,000. I'd say, okay, I need to put like, let's say like $300 in savings, and then I'm going to put $200 towards like my car stuff, and then like the rest towards debt. Like I would kind of split it up depending on what was needed that month.
Mhm.
So like
Mhm.
one month I think I needed new tires or something, so I was like,
Yeah.
okay, need to like do that first, and then want to put a little bit in savings. So I'm just kind of like building that momentum and that trust with myself, like, hey, I can save, I can pay off debt, I can take care of things right now. And so then I would kind of sit with that for like a day before I like moved the money around.
Mm.
So that was one thing I would practice too sometimes is I'd get paid, let's say on a Friday, and I would let it just sit there until like Monday before I moved it
That's
to
so
like its
wise.
respective places, because
Yeah.
otherwise my first reaction was, okay, just like, you know, hold your breath, close your eyes, and pay off the debt, you know?
Right? Yeah. So that fool archetype. So the fool archetype is that part of us that just wants to spend money. Like, you
Mhm.
know, actually the ulterior motive of having a full archetype is not to feel discomfort. So it can look like spending a lot of money, it can look like overeating, and in this case, when
Yeah.
we don't heal the full archetype, when we don't do the healing work first, the full archetype is going to manifest not just in wanting to spend money, but on the flip side too, of, oh my god, close your eyes and just put it towards debt. Don't think about it. Whereas what you're telling me is that you are slowing down, you are showing your internal parts and your nervous system that it's safe to slow, and it's safe to have that money in the account without it needing to go anywhere for a couple of days. And that is building that internal resilience. That is building an internal sense of like secure attachment within yourself, inside of yourself. And it's building that nervous system resilience to, I have money and I know what to do with it. And that
Yeah.
intentionality, right? You were intentional with like, when the money comes in, I don't have to just take it all, pay debt without thinking. I want to think, I want to be intentional, I want to be informed with what is happening in my life, and I get to choose. I am the one in the driver's seat, not that fool archetype or not the tyrant archetype that is, the part of us that is critical, that is, all about shame and blame. But you, Katie, are in the driver's seat, and you get there through regulating yourself, through doing the emotional regulation, so that you're like, I'm in my right space in my mind, I'm open, I'm connected, I'm in my open-hearted magician state, and I know where the money is going, and I'm going to take it there, but I'm going to wait. That is
Yeah.
perfectly why you are the star student of, of all money, so yeah, funneling every dollar we make towards debt is actually something I see commonly because it's what the general traditional advice tells us to do. But it's such a perfect way to land yourself back into debt. And I always find
Yeah.
people at that tail end of the cycle you were describing of like, I'm going crazy. I'm a finance major. I don't understand why I can't get myself out of debt. I'm supposed to know this, and that shame again and again and again, right? So it's so
Mhm.
common. So you mentioned it, and if anybody out there that is listening that is going through it, I just want you to know that there's no need to be ashamed, no need to feel guilty. It's very, very common, right? And
Mhm.
look at stories like Katie's story, and look at all around you. If there are people that you can look up to that can make you feel like it's possible to get out of that feeling of like you're underwater, like you mentioned, there's always
Yeah.
hope. And I love that your story is very, very hopeful.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it does take, it takes time, but like gosh, it's so worth it. Like I don't, yeah, it's so good. So I guess that was kind of where we were before, if you will.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think really it really did start speeding up a lot after we started working one on one. And so
Hmm.
I at the later part of 2022, really a lot of what my focus was actually to build up a savings I was doing at the time just 1,000 for emergency and 1,000 for my car, since it's a lot older. So it was like emergency car
Very
fund.
smart.
So that actually took me, it took me quite a while to kind of build that up, and took me, as I was restabilizing myself with my new job, to like, let's say like December of 2022. So then the beginning of 2023 is when I really started getting a lot more intentional about debt payoff, because now I have this little bit of, just in case money. So that way, if something does come up that I didn't have planned, I already have that there. I don't have to go back into debt like I used to.
Yes.
And so that's where that momentum really started building. And so I have like my debt sheet here, and I've like literally tallied it all up. And it's so cool to see how it's almost like, if you've heard of that, like penny doubling. It doesn't look like much until it's like very much at the end, and then it's like way more than if you were to take however amount. I forget what the exact analogy is, but it doesn't seem like a lot is happening at first, essentially. And then like when you scroll down my sheet here, it's like the last 3 months of the year when like things just started just completely just taking off, and started just paying off a ton more at a time. And like I mentioned in the beginning of 2022, when I realized, okay, this is actually not good. This is a problem. We got to start getting out of this. I was in $68,000 of debt. And in 2023 alone, I paid off $30,000 of debt.
Wow. Amazing. Did you
Yeah.
use the avalanche or the snowball method, or neither of those?
Yeah, I used I guess it would be the snowball. So paying off the smaller ones first.
To build momentum, yeah.
And then what's also crazy too, and just to like piggyback off of that, is this, like, so we're what, 2.5 months into 2024, and I've already paid off almost $10,000 more and saved $26,000.
Holy shit, that's amazing. I only heard the $26,000 after the piggyback. It kind of
Yes.
cut off. Can you repeat that?
No problem. So in the beginning of this year, so two and a half months in, I've already paid off another almost $10,000 of
Oh
debt.
my God. Okay.
And I have about $26,000 in
Holy
savings.
shit. That's amazing. That's amazing. 26K. A client of mine yesterday sent me a screenshot of their buckets, and they went from no savings to like 12 grand. That is so satisfying. But oh, sorry. But what you mentioned with the small incremental changes that feel like nothing in the beginning, because with you, like you said, it started off small. With the client I'm referring to, it started off very small with them too. It was like, can we put $100 into your savings every month? Okay. Can you put 150? Okay. All of a sudden, there's all that money in there, and it feels so rewarding, because there are intangible, and we'll get into that, the intangible impact of doing the money healing or doing the money work, but it's also nice to see the tangible bits as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's
But
so
a lot
hard
of
to
that,
keep believing.
yeah, a lot of it is intangible, like you were just saying. Like, we
Yes.
like to see the numbers and we like to see the movement there. But a lot of that, before it actually starts taking place, is happening inside.
Yeah, the intangible things that are happening inside, it's hard to keep faith sometimes. But you got to keep going. You got to keep the faith kind of thing. Keep the faith in the system. Keep the faith in yourself, the system that you're following, and the system that is within yourself, and keep building that resilience. And all of a sudden, bam, you see the results in front of you, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. I wanted to touch upon two things. The first question was, you did a zero interest balance transfer, right? You did,
I
yeah.
did.
So what were the criteria? Because we weren't working together at the time, or you were in the sanctuary, but I don't remember
I think
you.
I had already done it at that
You
time.
did, yeah. So what were the criteria for you to choosing where you did the balance transfer?
I think I have 2 credit cards, and the one had pretty high interest. I think the other one was doing a balance transfer. And just with the
Okay.
interest rate and the amount I had on the one, it would have made just so much more sense to do the balance transfer and pay the whatever fee it was,
Yeah.
because the fee alone was like 2 months of interest if I were to keep it on the other card.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
how it was, pretty high. Yeah, so I switched that over and was able to get 18 months of interest free
Hmm.
and paid that off in the 18 months. That's, I think, one thing that I
Wow.
also had done wrong in the past is I've done those balance transfers and then been like, "Oh, look, I have some free space on these credit cards so I can buy
Yeah.
things," right?
Well,
Like,
that's what they're
a lot of
banking
people
on.
do that.
Pun
Yeah,
intended.
a lot of people do that. A
Yeah.
lot of people do that. So this time I really made a commitment to not use my credit cards until they were actually all paid off. And
Yeah.
so that was a big thing too. I mean, now I'm able to use my credit cards responsibly, which is really fun because I
Yes, it
it's
is
really
fun.
fun being able to go in and just pay in full, pay in full. That's
Right?
really fun.
Yeah. Do
Mhm.
you know what? Every time I pay in full, I think about you. I'm like, yeah.
Nice.
That's my telepathic Katie moment. I want to, before we shift gears into the next kind of theme, I want to talk about why you feel that it's important to have a savings account while you are paying off debt.
Absolutely. Well, for me, like I mentioned, I started with 1,000 for like emergencies
Mhm.
and 1,000 for, because I have an older car, it's like 14 years old,
Yeah.
and just in case it broke down, right? Like that's a real possibility when you have an older car. So I think you had encouraged me to do that, and I was like, okay. So I did that, and the importance of that is as you are putting a lot of your extra money towards debt, there are going to be things that pop up when you're used to
You're
using
living
credit
life.
cards for those things. Yeah, you're living life. You might have a doctor's appointment. I don't know. You need a new tire. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But if you're used to, in past circumstances, using your credit card for those emergencies, like, we want to get yourself out of that habit, that loop,
Mhm.
right? And so I think
Mhm.
having that savings is that cushion to say, okay, it doesn't, like, if those things do happen, I'm good. I don't have to go back into this debt cycle. Like, I can continue that. Um, and I mean, if you did have to take from the emergency savings, you can just fill it back up again
Yeah.
and then you're
I
good.
I would
And
say, like, when we have an emergency fund, and sometimes, well, it's there for a reason, it's there for us to use. I would treat it as if it's another, like, line of credit that you have towards
yes.
yourself. It's interest free, but it is a priority to pay it back. So that, I think that's a
Hmm.
very important practice. Otherwise, we just end up not having it, and we kind of want that cushion between us and the world. I'm all about
Yeah.
having that, call it whatever you want to call it. I know people are like, I don't want to, manifest an emergency. I don't care what you call it, but just have have something that is not your savings, not the thing that you save for travel and fun stuff for,
Right.
just like a cushion. I call it a cushion, to be honest. So
Hmm.
yeah.
I even now have, like, before we go on to, I even have like my emergency savings in a completely separate account that is
Uh-huh.
for true emergencies, like if I lost my job or something. And then in my bucket system, I actually have like a buffer. So
Uh-huh.
like
Uh-huh.
20,
Yep.
25, $50, I think it's like $50 a month or something I put in that. And so that is what I kind of use for like pop-up doctor's appointments, that because I don't
Mm.
usually get sick. So it's like, pop up, like I actually did have to go to the doctor and get like a Z-Pack, so I like paid for it out of that.
Uh-huh.
So I have like that little buffer too that I usually keep. And then my plan is like, if I don't have to use that by the end of the year, I just push it into savings and I just restart.
Oh my God, Katie, you are amazing. That's incredible. I love
Thanks.
that. So, having debt um, is something that whenever we have debt, we have this mentality of we got to pay it off. So, logically, we kind of don't think about hiring a money coach. So,
Yeah.
it sounds counterintuitive. Tell us about that decision. What made you hire a money coach? And knowing also that I do more money healing than just money coaching. So just tell us about your decision. And even though logically it seems counterintuitive, why you went ahead with that.
Yeah. I had been thinking about it for a while just because I knew the importance of like the actual inner childhood healing and healing those narratives, and like
Yeah.
because I'd done it in many areas of my life, I'd trained on it, like
Yeah.
I'm a believer of that, like, and so I knew that that was important, and I had started off with the frameworks that really got me a good ways, but I knew that I could do more, and I
Hmm.
definitely value coaching and accountability and like a space for me to come, like when I was having our meetings, I knew, okay, I'm going to do the work because I'm going to see Nadine.
Yeah.
And I think when we originally had talked about it, I had looked at it and I was like, okay, I was used to putting coaching things on credit cards. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to pay for it like as a line item in my
Hmm.
budget
Hmm.
and in my, my money system at the time. And so I had told you, hey, I have this thing to pay off. It'll be done by July and then I can start.
Yes.
And I took that and it was really empowering too for me to be able to take that step where I'm paying for it every month and it's not going on credit cards.
Yeah.
And it also makes you show up a lot more, because I think one thing that will go through your head if you're also like kind of thinking about it is, well, I should know how to do this. I just need the systems.
Hmm.
And yes, the systems or like the resources and tools, whatever, those are
Nuts and
helpful.
bolts of finance. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's cool and we love that. And Nadine has that in the money
Yeah.
sanctuary. But there's also just so much to be said about emotionally what
Hmm.
we feel around money. I think one of the first conversations we had was about money and safety
Yeah.
and how money is just has so much tied in with safety and resources, and there's just so much emotion tied
So
around
much
that.
emotion, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just in general, as humans, 90% of our behaviors are driven by emotions. But add a layer to that of how much emotion money brings up, because money is so linked to our worth. It's so linked to any unresolved wounding or emotional traumas or any even physical or even sexual abuse that we've had in the past. So I have
Mhm.
clients that have gone through all of that, and they don't see how, like, they don't directly see how they're all connected, how they make the money and how they spend the money, and how it's so linked to the unresolved traumas that they have. And luckily, I am also trained in trauma resolution. Not only am I trauma informed, but also I do the trauma resolution part of it. And once we start unraveling these trauma knots, then the nuts and bolts become like, oh, this is easy. Because,
Mhm.
like I said, I have a lot of like actual clients that have finance as a major, or maybe they're even CPAs, or no, they've read all the books and listened to all the podcasts. And it's not a matter of what do you know, it's a matter of can you implement it. And once we start unraveling these trauma knots, everything else becomes like a piece of cake, right? That's why we do the emotional work first, and then we do the nuts and bolts. Because I'm not worried about, like, money stuff is easy. It's the emotional part of money that's not, right? You know?
Yes, and I don't
Yeah.
think we even really talked about, like, my specific buckets, like, I pretty much
No.
did that on my own.
Yeah.
We did a lot of the emotional stuff where, a lot of it's my eyes closed and you're just walking me through situations and, like,
Hmm.
that emotional stuff it drives so much of what we do, and so when you do untangle it, like you mentioned, like, the other things just become simple.
Simple, right? How would you describe money healing, and how do you think it's different to regular financial or money coaching? So the holistic work
Mm.
that we did together, how would you describe it, and how is it different?
It's different because, again, it's not just layering on more resources and tools because
Yeah.
anyone can do that. Like it's taking it so much deeper. And actually, the framework that you bring us through in the one on one coaching with like your money story and like kind of having you answer a bunch of questions about like your money biography, is that what
Mhm.
it was called?
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
money story or
that
money bio. Yeah.
money story. So that is so helpful because it really helps you to see throughout. all of your years of life,
Yeah.
where all of these stories could have been coming up. And it's interesting to find too that a lot of them might not have even been about money,
Hmm.
but they started impacting your life with money. So, um, yeah, it just really helps you to be able to feel grounded and at peace around those decisions with money.
Hmm.
And that is just, it's such a gift, because I definitely used to feel a lot of anxiety, and
Hmm.
I've tried a lot of, systems and, whatnot. Clearly all or nothing doesn't work.
Yeah.
But, and I think what I've learned through just money healing is like, you don't have to create such a restrictive, space for yourself. Like, as I started getting really like into that, I started realizing, oh wow, I can pay off debt and save and still like buy my coffee or do whatever I want, like do fun things.
Yeah.
Like, I was able to do all of that. And that was something in the beginning that just felt completely undoable. I was like, no, Nadine, you don't understand. I
Or
have
even
all this debt.
shameful.
Yeah. Like, I shouldn't be buying coffee because I have debt.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I mean, the reality is, like, I've come so far, and I can tell you I've spent a lot on lattes, and I've still paid off over $30,000 of debt and saved almost that same amount.
I
So,
love a good
like,
latte.
I love a good latte, and there's a great place here in San Diego.
Hell yes. So what was I going to ask? I mean, the next question for me was, how did money healing benefit you? But I feel like you've answered that. And I want to ask, like, at what point would you recommend to someone to see a money healing coach or holistic money healer?
Mm, yeah,
At
I
one point on
think,
their journey, or what are like the telltale signs that you would be like, okay, you probably need to do some deeper work?
well, definitely like where I was, where it's you're finding yourself in that all or nothing. Like, maybe you're able to pay off debt, but then you're right back in it.
Mm,
Um, Or even if you have maybe you recently got a new job and you're making more money and you're like, wow, this is great. But then you still find yourself with no money at the end of the
mhm.
month, right?
Or
Because you're
anxious
just
about
fine.
money.
Yeah. Or even just anxious about it. I think there's probably some work to do there to
Mhm.
help you feel more at peace. And um, me think where else I was. Um, I just knew that like there was just more for me in that realm. Like, I was like, this cannot be the thing that stands in the way of
Right?
like
Yeah.
where I'm going. And I just knew enough about like mentorship that I needed to have that accountability. Like, I really didn't have to do it on my own.
Mhm.
And I think there's just a lot to be said about a one-on-one mentoring relationship, and like
It's true.
how that, like, being heard and being seen in those situations can really just help you do that healing. Yeah, I don't know. So those couple of things come to mind, but definitely like that anxiety that you're feeling, all or nothing. Maybe you keep finding yourself in cycles of debt or not having money at the end of the month. Or even if you are trying to plan for, I don't know, like bigger savings things or something like that. And you're like,
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know, I just can't do it. You're finding some roadblocks, right? There might just be some emotional blocks that might need to be
Mhm.
like moved out of the way.
Yeah. I was going to say something about the all or nothing. When we restrict ourselves, we are basically re traumatizing our nervous system. Trauma happens when we don't have options. When you put yourself in
Mm.
a cycle of restriction, or the all or nothing mentality, that is actually bringing upon your nervous system more trauma. I was on a podcast interview a couple of days ago, and the interviewer asked me, if you were to coach yourself 10 years ago, what would be the first thing that you were to do, that you would do? I said, I would get me off of my budget, because I was on a very strict budget. And that budget was really re-traumatizing me and like reactivating or re-triggering my own personal money traumas. One of the things that people come to me for is not just overspending, but it's the inability to enjoy their money. So a lot of people have money, But first of all, it's disorganized. They can't look at it. They're avoiding it, or they're really obsessed with it and they can't enjoy it. They want to go on trips and they know there's more to life for them, and they have the money. It's just that they can't bring themselves to spend that money and enjoy their lives. So that is another. It's very rare that I get a client like this, but that was my personal money wounding. It was like the money hoarding kind of money
Yeah.
wound. Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, it feels like, oh, I wish I had that, but it really, really is. Oh, oof, it's not a nice feeling, not being able
Mhm.
to spend money on yourself and feeling really stingy and buying presents that are like the cheapest in the shop, and you hate
Yeah,
yourself,
instead
but
of what
you.
you really want.
Yeah, right? And then like
Mhm.
knowing that you need to go to the doctors, but you hold off and you don't buy the
Yeah.
supplements, and oh gosh, that
I
was my
used to do
life. It
that
was.
thing.
You do?
Mhm. Yeah, I used to do that with, like, doctors and, like, yeah, like or buying the cheaper thing instead of the thing you really want, you know,
Yeah.
I've totally done
It's
that.
one thing, it's one thing when we don't have the resources. It's one thing when we really are um we don't have the money. That's not money trauma. That's like, okay, time or this time in my life, it's really hard. Like I had these times where things were really, really tight, and it was understandable. So that's not what I'm referring to. If one of the listeners is like, this is what I'm going through, but I also don't have a lot of money, that's understandable. But I'm talking about when you do have the money, but you can't get yourself to use it. That is what I'm actually referring to, just for clarity for our listeners. So what would you say were the money healing benefits that you've had beyond just paying off debt? How has
Mhm.
your relationship with yourself evolved, and how has your relationship with boundaries, maybe with others? How would you say that change, if anything?
Yeah, I financial boundaries, that was one of the last things I heard you say, that definitely has been something that has become a lot stronger for me because I think
Hmm.
that in the past, I might have been a little bit more of that rescuer type, like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
rescue you and, like, pay for this and, feel bad for people. And while there is still moments where I feel good, like, gifting that to someone, like, I don't lend money anymore.
Hmm.
And, because it just doesn't energetically feel good to lend
Yeah.
someone money and then you're expecting it back, then you're kinda nagging them, right? Like, it just doesn't feel good. So, if I do give money, it's from, like, a giving place of, like,
Hmm.
"I don't need this back,"
Yeah.
right?
It's a gift, not
So
a I'm saving you kind of thing.
yes, it's more of a gift, right? Knowing that you just kinda release it, you surrender.
Hmm.
Um, and another big part is just having more peace and like not as much anxiety. And I think also like because I was so in that kind of frozen state before, I feel I have so much more like ability to choose. So
Yeah.
even when I find myself in those situations where I'm like, oh man, I might be needing some money for a certain thing. It's so much easier for me to make decisions on, okay, I'm going to maybe take it from this bucket and pay this bucket back or whatever.
Hmm.
And it's not a big deal. Whereas before it was like just such a stressful thing. And I'd spend way too much time thinking about it. So
Yeah, it
now it's
sucks up
not as
your like creative space and your peace of
yeah,
mind. I remember when
100%.
your oh, sorry, we're talking over each other because of the lag. I was gonna say, I remember when your mom was visiting from
Mhm.
Chicago, and you kind of
Yes.
like had a misunderstanding with your buckets, and you just solved the problem,
Yes.
just like this.
I did. Yeah. So I actually had realized that for some reason, I spent some of my rent money. It was
Hmm.
so weird. I was like, "What the heck?" And I think it was in the midst of me changing banks. So I was
Yeah.
like, I was changing over my banks to a different one or something. And so what I realized in that moment, I like kind of freaked out for a second. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't have money to pay my rent. It's due today." And I would like never really do that. So I could either like freak out about it, and then let that kind of carry into my mom's visit and like being stressed and worried about money, or I could fix it. So I was like, okay, I actually have the money over here in this other bucket. I can just move it, like go
Yeah.
physically to the bank. get it moved to the other bank because it would be faster that way. I had to do it that
Yeah.
way because I couldn't wait for the online transfer to take a couple days.
Hmm.
So that was the decision I had to make. And I picked up and it was funny because I drove all the way over there and the bank was still closed or the ATM wasn't working or something. And so I got all the way over there and I was like, crap. So I had to go back, and I ended up picking up my mom from the airport and just saying, "Hey, I got to run to the bank really quick. You're going to come with me." And she was just like, "Okay." So I like went, and at the time I was kind of feeling a little bit anxious because I didn't explain the whole situation, but I was like, "It's okay." So then I went over and like got the money, and then I took her over to the other bank and put it in. It was all fine. Like it all worked out.
Yeah.
But I could have let that situation completely just destroy me and, put that stress on my mom. But instead, I was like, no, I got this. I'm going to fix it. It's good. And like everything worked out. It was all good.
Yeah. So that is an amazing story, but behind the scenes, what I want to reflect on is that this is a reflection of an internal sense of security. This means that you have a younger part that freaked out because you did the quote unquote wrong thing. But that younger part, that inner child, trusts you so much that it freaked out. You took over the wheel, let's say, and it knew that you're going to do the right thing, so it didn't freak out. So it was like, okay, mommy's got it, old Katie,
Hmm.
like older Katie, got it. And you went and you did it, and you built that safety within you and that consistency, because over time, the more that we take care of our younger parts, the more our younger parts are going to surrender and allow that present day version of us to take over, which is the more open minded, open hearted, connected, kind of like wise part. So that is
Hmm.
just, this story is a reflection. Like if we take a microscope and go in, not that we can see the parts, but like on an emotional level, that was basically what was happening. So that's beautiful.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, would you say that taking on debt is bad? Do you think that credit cards are the devil? And what are some, no, she's like, nope. And what are some healthy ways to use credit cards or loans?
Yeah. Uh, I used to think that that was so bad because that's what we're really conditioned to
Hmm.
believe.
Yep.
But I think part of what we did in the money sanctuary is rename our debt, and that was helpful
Hmm.
because I was able to
Hmm.
see that for my personal circumstance, it wasn't for me, I wasn't like spending it on vacations or anything. I was using it on continuing education and to get
Yep.
mentorship and counseling and like coaching and therapy. Like that's what I was using it on. And for me, I needed those resources because I didn't have that emotional support growing up. And so I
Hmm.
had to go seek it out myself. And for me, like, I wouldn't have said this when we first started working together, but like now I see how debt has been like my biggest teacher
Wow.
because like I'm not even debt free yet, but I see the end of the tunnel. Like it's already done. Like God already
Hmm.
has it figured out, and I'm
Hmm.
not worried. So like, but it has been an incredible teacher for me, and I'm actually really grateful that I had to go through that. And
Wow.
now I am able to like I do actually use my credit card, and I am able to pay it off, but the way that I do it now is I don't put it on the credit card unless I could pay for it.
Exactly.
Like
Yep.
I right now that's what I do. So like if it's on the credit card it's because I can already pay it off. So I just move the money from that particular bucket to the one that pays off the credit card and I can just pay it off like that week or whenever I feel like it. It always gets
Mm.
paid off every single month. So that's how I use it now.
Sometimes we have to also be, like we have to bring the fact that sometimes people have to use their credit cards
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
they can't pay for groceries otherwise. So even if the financial industry and all these money gurus would shame you for it, if you have to use your credit card to survive, that is great. Use your
Yeah.
credit card and know that you have the resources within you to increase your income like Katie did. You have the
Mhm.
resources and the resilience to pay off that credit card when you need it, and it's there. in America, it's very easy for us to get credit cards. In Australia, when I was living there, it was really hard to get a credit card. I had to be interviewed by my bank just because
Wow.
yeah, I know it was a big deal. But think about like the circumstances in which a credit card can actually save you from things. I have a friend that had to put her entire divorce on her credit card, and without having a credit card, she would have been stuck in a very shitty situation. So
Yep.
if you need to use it, there's no shame in using it. It's just something that you're going to have to pay back. And like Katie said, there are a lot of gifts that come from pain sometimes. It was debilitating, it was crappy to be in that position, but look at you now. You said that you are thankful to that debt, and you're actually the
Yeah.
fourth person to ever say that to me. Like, oh my god, I'm so grateful for this debt, even though it's shit, but I learned so much about yourself, about myself, and all that
Yes.
beautiful things.
Yes.
If you were
And
to summarize, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just to like reiterate a few things that you said. I mean, like I was unemployed for a couple of months, right? So like in
Uh-huh.
those circumstances, when I didn't have the emergency fund because I wasn't ready for that yet,
Yeah.
that's where that became a credit card became a really great resource for me to eat,
Yeah.
So it can be a really good, responsible resource if used right. And I think you might have taught me this too, but like really when you think about it, credit cards are just borrowed money.
Yeah.
Like we're just kind of like paying to borrow money, like
Exactly.
essentially.
Yeah.
So like that's when you break it down, like that's what it is. And it doesn't have to be this huge, like,
It's not like
I'm a
a
terrible person because I had,
exactly.
that's not how it is.
Yeah, it's not like a symbol for your failure or a symbol that you're not making it or like you failed at the American dream. Our system, the whole life is set up to put us in debt. And I know a lot of rich
Hmm.
people that actually use loans and debt as a power tool, right? Like a lot of
Yeah.
times people would not invest in their business from their personal money. They would use their credit cards or use a loan to build their business and then repay that loan from their business just because they don't want to mingle, their personal and stuff. So it is a tool. And like you said, it is just borrowed money. And we're just paying for that privilege of borrowing money
Mhm.
from the bank, pretty much, or like using that money earlier. If you were to
Exactly.
summarize what you learned from your debt journey in one word only, and take your time to think about it, one word to summarize what you have learned, or what is the most important lesson, what would it be?
Mm. One word. Gosh, there could be so many one words.
Okay, give me
I
two one words.
I think trust came up,
Yeah.
and I think that's just like trusting like yourself, trusting like that like God has it figured out, and like like it's already done. You just have
Hmm.
to, you know, move those emotional barriers and allow what's already out there to like come your way.
Yeah.
Which can be hard.
I, I was hoping you would say that word. That's the word that I thought about when, the word I think about when I think about your journey is like how, yes, you are a champ at, up leveling and doing these amazing things. But what I really see, the real growth is your sense of self trust, and your trust in God and the universe has really grown, and your capacity to
Mhm.
receive as well. That's a big one.
Yeah. Big,
Yeah.
yeah, lots of capacity to receive. Yes.
Oh my God, it's so good. So tell us about, your future money goals, and maybe tell us about what
Sure.
your abundant fuck yeah life looks like right now.
Yeah. So my abundant fuck yeah life right now. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty simple. Like I go to the gym and I've been making so many new friends here being in a new place. So that's been just feeling so good and so
Mm.
exciting. Yeah, it just kind of feels like I'm like walking in and I'm home. and getting to explore new places, going on hikes. I've been on quite a few already that have been really exciting, and I've never lived by a beach, so that's pretty fun.
I'm jealous.
Yes, super fun. So, yeah, just enjoying all that and just all the lessons that I continue being able to learn in this season of life. There's so many, and I
Mm.
think that there is a reason why I was I moved to San Diego, and I just again, like the word again was trust, that I had to trust
Yes.
that that was where I needed to be. And sometimes that's, I question that. I'm like, why did you put me here? I don't understand. But I again have to like surrender and fall back into that trust and realize like I have been given just such incredible blessings by just following that.
Yeah.
Um and as far as like money goals, um being debt free this year, that will happen. It's
Mm.
done. And I also am like kind of elevating my Italy goal because I was able to save like for that, but I'm elevating it to be able to bring my mom with me because we also talked about
No
that.
way. That's amazing. Oh my
Yeah.
God. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. Oh
Hmm.
my goodness. That is very, very
Yeah.
exciting. I'm very
Hmm.
excited to see your photos in Italy with your mom. Is that going to happen this
Yeah.
year?
Not this year, no. I don't know exactly when, but like we talked about it, and I was like, "Where would you go if you could go anywhere?" And she said Italy. And she's like, I've really been thinking about going to Italy for like a whole month. And so, definitely a big goal of mine too is to grow my business that I have
Mhm.
on the side so that I'm able to have the time to like go do that for a month with my mom. And
Yeah.
she's also just so amazing and supportive of what I do and like all that I do. And I'm so thankful for that because sometimes people don't support you when you're doing your own thing. So,
Yeah.
but those are some elevated goals that I have. Yeah, I think those are the bigger ones. So,
That's amazing. And yay to supportive mums. Where would we be without them,
yes,
huh?
absolutely. She's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Katie, you're amazing. And I just want to celebrate you, and I am honored that you chose to work with me as your guide on this debt healing journey, or debt payoff and healing journey, let's say. And I'm very, very proud of you. And I'm very happy that the whole world gets to listen to your story, so that if anyone is feeling like they're stuck under a rock or underwater, then there's hope, and you can be that beacon of light for them as needed,
Yeah,
right? So
thank you.
thank you
And
so much.
I just want to say too, thank you to you for like being that guide for me because I needed that. I needed that person that really like hold me in that place of moving through the emotional stuff that comes up with money as I squirmed around. And you provided such a safe place for me to be able to do that and to move those barriers. And so definitely very blessed to have you in my life.
Oh, Katie, it's my honor. And one day we get to hug in person and celebrate the
Yes,
fuck out of you.
indeed.
Yay.
I'll come to New Mexico because I haven't been yet.
Oh, you love it here. So I know that you have a blog. I am going to link it in the show notes. So everyone,
Yeah.
Katie has a blog where she writes about many things, about her travels, and she also has
Yeah.
a blog post about her debt journey. So make sure to
Yes.
check that out in the show notes. And
Yes,
thank you so
indeed.
much for coming on the Money Healing Podcast. And thank you, everyone who stuck around and listened. And I will see you all next week. Bye for now.